course, for the start of the Winter Olympics, and also particularly for the promotion of investment. We've also seen them some important meetings being held. We've also seen some headway being made as far as MOUs are concerned, further development in various sectors as far as industry is concerned, work on that is concerned. All of that today on Perspective. We'll be talking about what we hope to achieve from this visit, what Pakistan hopes to achieve, our long-standing relationship with China, and what this visit will mean for the future prospects of Pakistan. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Nasir Ali Khan, who's a former ambassador. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Mohammad Shoaib, who's a foreign affairs expert. Thank you for being with us. We also have with us Zoon Ahmed Khan, who's a journalist from Beijing, China. Thank you so much for joining us. Nasir, like we were earlier talking about, we have a long-standing relationship with China, of course. This visit is happening after 2 years. It means a lot for Pakistan. There's a lot that has been said. You know, the Prime Minister said a lot also about the kind of opportunities we hope to avail, you know, and vice versa, with respect to trade, commerce, all of those things. How do you look at this visit, considering the timing of it, also that it's coming after 2 years, all of that?
Well, ostensibly the visit is for the PM and his team to be able to attend the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Right.
But obviously it's a 3-day visit, and there are very, very high-level meetings, both with the President as well as the Premier. And we have a strong team, and the Prime Minister, Mr. Imran Khan, has done comprehensive homework. He has met civil and military leadership to be able to determine the agenda. And it's always very nice for us to have an opportunity to meet at the highest level. However, as far as what will come out of these meetings is concerned, it is encouraging that the Prime Minister met the business community there. It's also encouraging that they express their wish to make very large investments, both in Gwadar as well as close to Lahore. But you know, what we really need to look at is how far we've progressed in the last 7 or 8 years. We need to actually look at what exactly is happening in Gwadar right now. There are certain issues
as far as CPEC
as far as security is concerned, and as far as the business environment is concerned. So, you know, these are the practical issues. If I make a commitment of, you know, investing $3 billion in something, Pakistan basically needs to do a lot of homework to make these things happen. You know, the ease of doing business.
On that note, let me come back to you. I think that's a consistent theme of the visit also, the ease of doing business and the issues that, you know, overall we've seen the business community facing in Pakistan at this time, and our businesses overall also. Dr. Shoaib, with respect to that, do you agree with what Nasir Saab was saying in terms of course, the fact that we need to do the kind of homework and we need to realize where the issues are as far as CPEC is concerned, One Belt, One Road initiative is concerned, you know, at this time where we are as far as Gwadar is concerned, what the situation is there, and what are some of the issues that we can iron out at this time?
So, at this time, for example, before this visit, what we have seen in Pakistan was actually lots of homework. Prime Minister was briefed in December. Then also the cabinet has tried to remove as many as possible irritants and regulations which were trying to actually, which were becoming impediments to Chinese investments in Pakistan. So the Pakistani leadership is pretty hopeful before meeting the Chinese leadership. As for the issues are concerned, they are here, of course, and Pakistan is facing those issues. And of course, the Chinese also understand that there are some genuine issues in Pakistan.
And as far as
Pakistan
investment
is trying.
concerned, as far as commerce is concerned, as far as our economy is concerned, you know, more than anything else, of course, this visit seems to be focused on that. Is that true? Do you agree with
Yes, exactly. And this is perhaps one of the rare moments in Pakistan's history when the Pakistan leadership is pretty much focused on economy and they have an agenda. And the agenda is, for example, prioritizing the special economic zones. Now, the Pakistanis are trying to bring in the Chinese investments in the special economic zones, as well as the leadership wants to have the Chinese industry relocated to Pakistan. For example, there are some Chinese industries which are relocating into East Asian countries. So Pakistan looks forward to having those industries in Pakistan, and that's a great opportunity if some of those industries are relocated in Pakistan. And when we have the SEZs, we have a very good chance that those industries come to Pakistan.
Right, let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Zoon Ahmed Khan. Ji, Zoon, do you agree? I hope that you've been following the conversation so far of the former ambassador here, Dr. Shoaib here. They've been, giving us their opinion on what they hope, what they perceive this visit can mean for Pakistan. Do you agree that, of course, there's special focus on the special economic zones, there's special focus on for Pakistan, on economy, and also the fact that some of the businesses can be housed in Pakistan effectively?
Marukh, thank you firstly for having me. And of course, with both Ambassador and Dr. Shoaib, I'll agree that the economy, and by the economy we mean the utilization of the first phase of CPEC, is definitely the priority for Pakistan. If from a Chinese perspective, I've been based here for 6.5 years, and I think from a Chinese point of view, we can understand the Belt and Road Initiative as really an opportunity to create those kind of linkages of economy, people to people, cultural cooperation between regions. And Pakistan's China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a flagship project of the Belt and Road Initiative. This spans over multiple continents. So it's a big initiative, and Pakistan is playing an important role. So as far as the second phase is concerned, yes, it's all about how...
Let me interject here. Do you think that there is also, as far as the issues that we've been facing for now 8 years, which is, what also we were talking about earlier, do you think that this may be a chance to look at those issues also and perhaps, work towards, ironing out the problems that, of course, have been seen with respect to CPEC and, furthering the One Belt, One Road initiative in that area?
100%. There's a Chinese proverb that says that, you feel the pebbles as you cross the river. And even if we look at the Chinese experience, this 40 plus years of reform and opening up, it's been about constant reflection, constant correction, and constant improvement. So even when the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor was announced, and in 2015, the $46 billion of infrastructure development and cooperation was conceived, the idea was always that we'll reflect, and even the JCC is all about reflecting on the delivered and how we can further expand and enhance the scale and scope of CPEC. So reflecting on our progress and looking at really ironing out the issues that we see step by step and being receptive towards them is the key priority. If you look at China's investments in other countries like Vietnam, Sri Lanka, there are many examples, even FOCAC, which is the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. It's all about constantly thinking what further can be done, what can be improved, what can be removed and replaced with something better. So we're never in a position to perfectly predict how the next 10 years will look. So we have to be receptive towards that. And in Pakistan's case, I would say that we as Pakistan think of the BRI, we think China and Pakistan cooperation. And another dimension of it is regional cooperation. We know that CPEC's main purpose is also that through it can connect the region at large, Afghanistan, Central Asia, towards Iran and beyond. So for China, on the other hand, when they look at the Belt and Road Initiative, it's the world at large. There are dozens of countries that Chinese investors can go in. So right now for Pakistan, the key focus is how do we attract Chinese investors that are looking at the world? What are the unique advantages we can provide them? How do we really package ourselves? And I'll also add that prior to COVID, towards the end of the first phase, there were still many opportunities where Chinese investors were engaged. Because of COVID, there has been overall slowdown in many aspects of economies, but Pakistan has still been a demonstration and example in terms of key infrastructure investments. That said, now is a core opportunity for the Prime Minister and for high-level officials to once again re-engage and to think about how can we attract the Chinese investors And
Right.
what else is out there in the
Let me come
market
back
for
to
them?
you.
How can we
I'll
be
just
more
come back to
competitive?
you. Please stay with us. Gee, Nasib, you heard Zoon, and she's talking about, of course, looking at those issues that may have been an issue as far as for the last 8 years, which we were earlier talking about.
Yes.
As far as those, do you think that as far as attracting businesses here is concerned, what unique advantages do you think we can offer them? Do you think it's probably, of course, it's a great chance to get that kind of investment. We also have the Prime Minister's team there to convince businesses, to give them the kind of course, briefing that is needed. But what do you hope?
Well, look, what Zoon has said, some very useful information. She's absolutely right. They have so many opportunities, the Chinese, to invest anywhere in the world. Africa has such tremendous opportunities. But we are also China's strategic partner.
Right.
And our location and the access that we provide to the warm waters of the Gulf has a certain importance. And then the historic relationship that we have. But we have to get out of these sound bites, that our comprehensive agenda for furthering these ties and doing this and that and signing more and more MOUs. No. I'll give you an example. As far as ease of doing business is concerned, a business concern requires about 113 days on average to get an electricity connection, 125 days on average to actually get property registered and get a business going. It's just too many hassles, too many roadblocks on the way. We need to get together. We need to get together with the provinces also, because after the 18th Amendment,
Yes.
a lot of taxation structures, like you have about 35 organizations and agencies that are concerned with taxation. Then after the 18th Amendment, a lot of these are in the provinces. So we all have to, the center and the province and the security establishment, they all have to sit together to try and solve these problems. We can't just keep talking about them. We need to cut down this period. We keep talking about a one-window operation. We never had a one-window operation. So at least in the SEZs, create a place where the businessman can go and all his problems will be handled through that one window. We have never had that. Then we need to iron out the differences between the federation and the provinces so that we make things easier. The other thing is security. Now, if you go to Gwadar and you see the way the Chinese need to move with armored vehicles and the army is there on the roads, it actually creates a problem with the local population. So, you don't have to kind of steamroll your way through security. You need to engage with the locals.
You need a
to
safe
understand,
environment overall.
and to make them realize you have to have corporate social responsibility programs. Before you bring your businesses in, you need to create schools and,
But we've been talking about this before also, Dr. Shoaib, before, I think even a couple of years ago, Pakistan was, again, the conversation was about having those kind of programs which Nasir Saab is talking about, having those kind of institutions, having that kind of trained labor here, all of those things. How much headway do you think that we've been able to make in that direction?
Actually, we have been doing good.
Okay.
For example, if you look at the comprehensive relationship, for the last 5 to 7 years, at least 15,000 Pakistani students have graduated from Chinese universities.
Okay.
And most of them were graduated in sciences and technological fields. So this comes as a benefit to Pakistan. And secondly, automatically it improves people-to-people relation between China and Pakistan. Now many Pakistanis understand the Chinese culture. So when naturally the Chinese come, they do have friends here in this society. So it's kind of make things easier for people to get adapted to the Chinese way of life.
So you think the pace could be faster?
Yeah, pace could be faster, but then there are some genuine issues. For example, for the last 2 years, we have been suffering from
Yes, of
COVID,
course.
and there was not really good development. And in fact, Pakistan has been very successful to even sustain the momentum somehow, and that was quite a success. If you look at other economies, they were almost literally shut for 2 years. But we have been doing things slowly and gradually. And secondly, security is a problem in Pakistan. That's understandable. But if you look back to 2013 or 2012, we have improved a lot.
Okay.
And apparently, or in fact, the way we are looking forward, actually, we are going to have some better times. And the Chinese investments in the region, they will also help us improve the security situation inside Pakistan.
But within Gwadar, like Nasir Saab is saying, why do you think, why have we not been able to provide that kind of secure environment minus, the kind of security detail that the Chinese need, in your opinion?
So it's this problem in Gwadar, it really precedes the Chinese investments, and it was there before the Chinese came in. And it will take time.
Okay.
So if we think that the residents of Gwadar, they will understand that the Chinese are here for us, it will take time to even those residents.
But do you think we have the kind of programs that is trying to explain it to them, to educate them in that direction, which is what we've been talking about?
Actually, the Pakistanis and Chinese, they are trying to do certain things. For example, the Chinese are going to invest in water plants which will provide drinking water to the residents of Gwadar. Then they are also trying to open some schools, some technical colleges. If the children and the adults, they go to the schools and they are trained, of course they would find jobs, and then there comes the realization that this is something for us and we are going to benefit from the system. But of course, change cannot come overnight, so we have to be patient for,
let me come back to you.
Zoon,
do you think that, that kind of, we've been talking about the realization for the locals in Gwadar, for there to be that kind of a hospitable relationship between the locals and the Chinese. Do you think enough headway has been made? Do you think more, of course, can be done in terms of educating the locals also? That's, of course, for us here to do. But also on the Chinese side, for there to be, for us to actually, for there to be the kind of benefit we want out of this whole initiative, which is so huge and has, of monumental proportions.
Marukh, I agree with both of your previous guests. Actually, the first thing is that definitely long-term peace, stabilization, all of that is going to be a process. And development, economic improvement, more people being educated makes younger people less susceptible. If one of the things I focus on is also the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the mandate is exactly this: let's engage young people. Let's educate, let's invest in them. And that's going to address these issues that not only Pakistan, but other countries in the region are facing. Coming to Gwadar, both Dr. Shoaib and Ambassador mentioned that there are initiatives currently. I went to Gwadar in 2017 twice, and then in 2019. In 2017, a girls' school, the first girls' middle school and primary school, Fakir school, was opened by the Chinese. The land was donated by a local Gwadari family. And since then, the school has become one of the best schools of the province. This is a very positive initiative and obviously well received by a community where young girls had to drop out of schools because they just didn't have access to better education safely. Then we talk about vocational training centers, that's underway. Hospital, yes, there's a hospital that is providing Gwadari people better treatment. They are investing, they are donating water. They are reaching out to the community. Even young people from Gwadar have been sent to China to study in the best universities of the country, and they're going back and making a difference. So these steps are in the positive direction. Talking about CSR initiatives, Chinese companies understand that, yes, they care about the community that they're surrounded by. They are creating jobs for hundreds of Gwadari local people. The chairman of Gwadar Port, Chairman Zhang, he always talks about the percentage of local people that they're employing, and they try their absolute best. That is the local Gwadari people that are benefiting from this. And the more this project develops, the more opportunities will come out for young people, and that is going to take time. Another example we need to understand, is that China's own development has taken decades. There are still parts of China where that massive, that fast development which China has become synonymous with hasn't happened. So every area, every SEZ, every city in Pakistan will also require its unique formula. So one thing that Pakistan can do and must do, and the one thing that we can really learn from China, is to understand the unique circumstances of each initiative under CPEC and for our own development as well. Gwadar will need its own
What are
formula. We
some
need
of
to
the
understand.
sectors you feel that the Chinese businesses would want to, the areas where which Chinese businesses would want to come here,
One
particularly?
thing
Gee.
I think that's a very important question. And I think one thing that's very, very significant is the cultural presence of a country in China. So
Okay.
when Chinese businesses are looking where to go, obviously what they associate that country with, how rich or how unique that country's culture is also going to factor in. So first of all, obviously a safe environment, they look at the basics, how easy it is for them to relocate to Pakistan. Those are technical things. But beyond that, we're also thinking about cultural presence. So that's some place where Pakistan can make immense impact. Our students being here in the thousands makes a difference already. Our cultural presence in any country is going to make a big difference. So this is something that Pakistan can really focus on, display our rich culture. Already the embassy it has been focusing on that Gandhara civilization. This is something we have in common with China. That can attract many Chinese young people also to think about Pakistan. We have such rich natural heritage. This kind of cultural presence of Pakistan can play a very integral role, and it has played an integral role for countries that have successfully developed their special economic zones through Chinese investments.
Right, let me come back to you. Ji, Nazita, what areas do you think in particular, you think, of course, our team there, the team that's gone with the Prime Minister, will also be targeting those areas. Which areas do you think, would businesses would want to come again to Pakistan?
Well, look, any business that might want to come to Pakistan will not come there because we request them to do so.
Right,
It has to be economically
Something
viable.
lucrative for them, of
So
course.
businesses that may possibly want to invest here is those businesses, either they are those businesses who are looking at the close proximity of the Middle East market, and it is to their advantage to be so located that they can supply to that market. The other thing, of course, is a growing middle class in Pakistan, which is about 30 to 35 million people,
Right.
which is a very good market for all kinds of goods. So any companies that can supply to that market would be interested. But I think we should look at the opportunities where Pakistan can benefit, whether Pakistan's businessmen or Pakistan's people can benefit. And the areas that I look at are things like agriculture, for instance. Now, in agriculture, they can help us a lot, but it'll be a win-win situation where they will also benefit. It's not like assistance, but for example, there is a joint venture by Guard Rice and some Limpong company, LP, which has been developing a seed for rice, and it's very, very popular, that seed over here. So they're already working. We can do a similar thing with maize. You know, there are two other companies, Monsanto and Pioneer, that sell seeds over here or develop seeds. But we can work with the Chinese on this. Thirdly, the fact that Xinjiang province has a tremendous cotton, industry, or they grow cotton in large quantities. So we should send our farmers to learn those modern techniques, and we should also buy machinery, farm machinery from them, because their machinery is both small and large, and also far more competitive. So, these are opportunities. Then thirdly, in logistics, if you remember, towns like Sahiwal and Okada and all were developed because they were like mandi towns, they were market towns, and they were situated on the GT road.
Right.
Now you have the new CPEC. I don't see why we cannot develop areas where there will be farm service centers or storage facilities for farmers along these motorways. If we can have McDonald's and Hardee's and all,
Right.
every few miles
We
we
can
should
have-
have an area where people can develop these things. The Chinese would be very interested in that. You can have cold storages, you can have a whole cold chain for our vegetables and fruits. You can have storage facilities for grain, because many times you see the farmer, when all the crop comes in at one time, the aarti or the middleman takes advantage of this. So if you have a storage facility, farmer can store over there, get a receipt against which he can borrow for the next crop and so on. So these are areas, research, they can help us, mechanization, they can help us, logistics, they can help us. And of course, overall logistics.
In terms of province, you were talking about the fact, of course, we have now, after devolution, there is, of course, we need to have integrated, the cooperation from all the provinces, which is what you talked about also. And, of course, as far as the political situation is concerned, it needs to be, there needs to be stability, and there needs to be that kind of environment that then, encourages businesses also. So that's an important thing, right, Dr. Shoaib?
Exactly. And I would like to add something which Ambassador Saab has been saying, particularly in agriculture, for example. So there are two more areas where we can actually excel. One are oranges and the other are mangoes.
Right.
So that reminds me of a story when Pakistanis for the first time sent mangoes to Mao Zedong, the premier leader, in 1960s. And the Chinese did not really know about those sweet potatoes. But now they grow more than what we grow here in Pakistan. And secondly, we can also track Chinese investments in information technology and machinery that can help in building and, of course, demolishing infrastructure.
Right.
So these are the areas where we can actually attract the Chinese businesses. And in the second phase of CPAC, Pakistan is actually looking for industrial products and, of course, machineries which we do not produce here. And yes, of course, there are lessons to be learned from the Chinese.
Right, let me come back to you. Ji, Zoon also, when Mueed Yusuf spoke about the visit, the bilateral relationship with China, and also, with regard to how important it will be as far as Afghanistan is concerned, and of course, with the situation that has changed in Afghanistan and our relationship with China, the peace in the region, China's cooperation with Pakistan as far as to that end is concerned. How far do you agree with that? Do you think it's that we can make headway with that also? Of course, it will be on the agenda.
Yes, and it should be on the agenda. So, sorry, let me quickly start with the Chinese understanding and perspective on Afghanistan, as best as I can explain. They are definitely concerned about the humanitarian crisis. The Chinese have also criticized the fact that that the Afghans are being alienated at a time of need, and the fact that China shares the region just like Pakistan means that we both look at the situation in the same way. We are looking for short-term and long-term solutions. So yes, Afghanistan is very important for China as well. Stabilization of Afghanistan is important, and even I'll once again mention the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but also the Belt and Road Initiative. We can't envision this initiative in the long term without Afghanistan being on board, without infrastructure being built through Afghanistan, connecting Pakistan, Central Asia, and also to China. So it is definitely a very important concern that we both share. And to what extent we can make headway, I think one platform that can be very, very decisive and very influential in this could be the SCO. Let's see how far that comes, because all members of the SCO are neighbors of Afghanistan as well. So that can be effective. But that said, the Chinese are looking for new ways and better ways. They have been promoting trade and import of Afghan products in China, and that's something that's gaining momentum as we speak. So that's definitely a positive development, and they're donating as much as they can, and that's definitely a concern. The biggest concern, I think, for Pakistan and China and other countries in the region is if we are not able to address this short-term crisis, the consequences can be lasting and long-term and devastating for the entire region. So that's where I definitely think that this will be an important issue for both sides. And let's hope something concrete can come out of it.
Right, let me come back to you. Nasab, also, the fact that the Prime Minister, held his ground as far as undertaking this visit is concerned, in the face of a lot of other countries not choosing to take part in the Olympics. Also our relationship with China to that end, is itself a testament of, the fact that of course it's a long-standing relationship and what we hope to achieve other than MOUs. Of course MOUs, signing of MOUs, but taking it further on from there will be a task for his team, for the Prime Minister, for Pakistan as a whole.
Absolutely. Of course, the reason that the Prime Minister would go there is because of our long-standing and strong relationship. There's no doubt about that. We have a very special relationship.
Right.
And we help each other in the most difficult of circumstances. An example of this I have seen at the United Nations. China has always given us a blank check whenever we used to go and negotiate with the other P5 members. There was always some kind of quid pro quo. Well, if you do this, then maybe we'll help you there. But the Chinese would come and say, just tell us what we need to do and we'll do it. So we have a very special relationship with them. But the most important thing here is, for years we are talking about this very strong relationship. We both know what we want to achieve.
Right.
But Pakistan needs to focus on what is absolutely necessary to make this happen.
Okay.
And what is necessary is to have major reforms.
Okay.
I have heard of a Chinese individual, a very senior person working for the last 7 years in Pakistan, saying that, Pakistan is still working with a book that's 100 years old. How much investment has come into China from all over the world, more than at any country, in any country at any time in history. So they must be doing something right to invite that investment, right? So when the Prime Minister goes there and his team goes there, perhaps they should take advice from the Chinese and say, what is it? What are the key reforms that are needed there? Of course, there's a difference in their governance, in the sense that the Chinese Communist Party can implement reforms much more easily. We have a parliament, we have a judiciary, we have people taking stay orders, we have people who
we also
create
have numbers.
hurdles.
As far as numbers are concerned, the government has majority, but of course, they're also limited in what they can undertake.
The most important thing, we have a lot of people who are not happy with CPEC and are working actively to sabotage the process.
Particularly
So-
across the border, we've seen,
and elsewhere too. They have expressed it in not so many words, but they're not happy. So we have to. My point is, we need to make major changes, major reforms before we can really attract
that kind of investment.
direct foreign investment. That's very important.
Shoaib Saab, do you agree?
Yes, I agree, but then there are some differences between China and Pakistan, and we
Of
cannot
course.
really replicate the Chinese model. So we are a democracy, and we have different ethnic groups in Pakistan. So there has to be a negotiated settlement first within Pakistan and then between China and Pakistan. And of course, we have certain limitations as for the learning the lessons from the Chinese are concerned. But of course, nothing is impossible, and the Chinese have shown it to the world that if you are determined, you can do the wonders even in a few decades, like 3 or 4 decades. Pakistan can do the same.
Right.
And Pakistan has actually realized for last at least 10 years that it's the economy that eventually matters before everything. And now we have seen that whenever
the
we
security
talk...
policy also, as far as, now having the first economic, the kind of integration that envisages. Also, of course, this visit itself also shows, when we talk about security, we talk about our relationship with China, we talk about our economies together, we talk about getting the kind of foreign direct investment which Nasir Saab was also talking about. All of that is integrated essentially.
Exactly, it's integrated, but if you look at the history of China-Pakistan relationship, for the first 50 years, we were cooperating with the Chinese more in terms of security. And but very recently, we have realized that this relationship has to be a comprehensive relationship. If we call it a comprehensive partnership, we really have to show it. So if you look at China-Pakistan relations today, you will see almost 20 to 25,000 Pakistani students studying in China. Pakistani businessmen are residing in China. Chinese businessmen are in Pakistan. Pakistani workers are under training in China. Chinese are building infrastructure in Pakistan. So we have partnership with the Chinese in power plants, in infrastructure, in SEZs. So now this is what we call a comprehensive relationship. And by the way, Pakistan has taken a very good stance as for this Winter Olympics and the alleged reports of the massacre in Xinjiang is concerned. I really actually wanted to talk about that. So PM has taken a very good stance, and he has actually shown it to the world that when it comes to Pakistan, Pakistan will
stand by China.
Exactly, and Pakistan will say what it thinks is right. So we don't really have to follow the American or Western countries' line. If Pakistan thinks that things are right in China, so Pakistan will say what it thinks is right. So that was a good thing. And the other is that
you're saying diplomatically we've clearly shown the world that we will stand by China and that we have a clear stance as far as our relationship with China is concerned.
Exactly, and we have shown it very recently in the Summit of Democracies that we are not going to become part of any group that is anti-China in nature, and this time we will not buy any sort of propaganda that is directed against China. We are not going to do that.
Right, let me go to Zoon. Zoon, do you agree with that? Of course, you know, as far as our Pakistan stance is concerned, you think that of course this step will also further you know, cement the relationship with China, and in terms of looking at you know, things we can emulate, we can you know, as far as the model of governance is concerned, certainly you know, there's no doubt that there is a different form of government, and of course we will have to keep in our own issues, our own problems in hand, but of course there's a lot to learn.
There's definitely a lot to learn. And I think your previous speakers have said a lot. And I'd just like to add a bit to that. An initiative such as the Summit on Democracy is divisive. And if you look at the communication coming out of Beijing, we're not looking at a shift from one imperialist power to another. China is against this kind of alliance-based and zero-sum politics completely. It's all about partnerships. And even if you look at overall the Belt and Road Initiative, which is such a flagship and such an important initiative by China, all countries of the world are invited to participate. So I think at the end of the day, what Pakistan and other countries need to do is choose their own pragmatic interests. And when we do that, we will automatically be able to benefit from the opportunities outside and be able to make sure that we are thinking long term for the sake of our own people. So what China really wants is objective, holistic cooperation. We are neighbors, we have a very unique friendship and a very unique relationship, and it is expanding for the benefit of people on both sides. So what can we do further to ensure that this trend goes in the positive direction, continues to gain momentum? What can we learn from the past few years when we talk about CPEC specifically? And how can we make those changes in a positive direction? So definitely Pakistan has always supported China and China has supported Pakistan. And eventually what Pakistan will need to do, like other countries in the world, is be pragmatic, think about economic development, and security and economy are intertwined, are deeply intertwined, are interconnected. So long-term stability is going to be dependent on the extent to which we can really provide opportunities and positive avenues for our young population. And I think that's something that our
in terms of the MOUs that were signed
on.
earlier on, of course, you know, it has been suggested that the Prime Minister will perhaps ask for a progressive report on the MOUs that have earlier been signed, you know, of course, with regard to see whether, you know, assess the kind of progress that we have made, and also it will perhaps be a confidence booster for the new MOUs that will be signed. You know, during this visit also. But what are some of the issues you feel, if we keep the last visit in mind, that perhaps we can look into and you know, things and change things to have a faster pace of the kind of infusion of you know, of industry, of you know, foreign direct investment that we're actually looking for?
Is that for me?
Gigi.
Okay. I think, as I mentioned a few things earlier, Ambassador also mentioned, we obviously need to be more attractive as an investment destination, because when we're talking about B2B, all we are talking about is investment and return on investment. So what are the incentives we can offer will matter a lot. See, the first phase was about government to government, essentially. That's very different from people voluntarily coming and relocating to Pakistan. So in that sense, how attractive we are as an investment destination, Pakistan is doing immense amounts of work. And from here, I'm part of many initiatives, many projects, many programs that we are doing to communicate the incentives offered to Chinese investors, and also to communicate what is the scope for technical cooperation in many areas, including, of course, agriculture, education, technical training, etc. So that's something we can do more of. COVID has been a barrier for many reasons, but I think, in my opinion, we have utilized this time quite effectively because there is more awareness about what are those specific areas and avenues we can focus on. And secondly, most importantly, I really think it's culture. I think our cultural presence in China can be much, much more, and the private sector can play a very important role. We have done a few film festivals that have had a positive impact. Many Chinese approach me and they ask, what are the kind of products, Pakistani, especially handicraft, Pakistan is such a rich history, what kind of products can we import from Pakistan? And this is something, art, aesthetic, and culture is something that young Chinese people, especially the zero generation, as you call them, are extremely interested in. So perhaps one thing we can do more of is get in touch with influencers in China that have outreach of literally millions of young followers. And how can we attract young Chinese people to the Pakistani market and to the Pakistani culture?
I think
I
that's a
really
very
think that's
interesting and
something we can
important
do a
thing
lot
that you've just
in.
mentioned. On that note, we're running out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. Nasir Ali Khan Sahab, thank you for joining us. Dr. Mohammed Shoaib, thank you for being with us. Zoon Ahmed Khan, thank you for joining us from Beijing. As far as China is concerned, certainly there are areas that, of course, we hope that we will be able to yield investment. It's one of the most important parts of the Prime Minister's visit, along with security, along with other issues that are going to be discussed during this very important visit. Of course, it's a 4-day visit, and we're all hopeful that this will be a visit that will actually yield concrete results in area of economy, in investment, in trade, in all of those areas, which is what the Prime Minister and his team aim to do. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.